Okay, welcome back again.
Tak vás vítam späť.
It's raining outside,
Vonku nám prší.
so hopefully we can receive some rain as well inside.
Nech nám dá Pán tiež svojho dažďa.
I would like to continue what we were doing.
Chcel by som pokračovať v tom, čo robíme.
Our last study was kind of like two parts.
Naše posledné štúdium bolo trošku rozdelené na dve časti.
For the first part I have to think it was about to finish the time setting topic.
Tá prvá sa týkala určovania času.
But we went through the quote from the Bible verse from Paul.
Ukazovali sme vo verši Pavlovom.
Connected with the quote from Sister White.
V spojitosti so sestrou Whiteovou.
And we kind of concluded from these verses.
A z toho sme uzavreli.
That if you are in a period of darkness,
že ak sme v čase temnoty,
you're not able or you're not allowed to predict time.
nie sme schopní a ani nám to není dovolené predpovedať čas.
God does not give you a time, a message based upon time in this history.
Boh nedáva posolstvo založené na čase v týchto dejinách.
But as soon as you are in a reform line,
Ale keď sme v reformnej línii,
it becomes required to recognize the time.
Stane sa to vyžadovaným.
And it becomes part of the message.
A je to súčasťou posolstva.
And we saw that from Paul and from Sister White when she was speaking about the 1798.
Videli sme to, keď sestra Whiteová hovorila o 1798.
And Paul, here in the beginning of this history,
A na začiatku tých dejín Pavol
he wrote to the people in Thessalonica
písal svojmu ľudu v Tesalonike,
that they were not supposed to look forward to the coming of Christ.
oni nemali vlastne očakávať Kristov príchod.
Because certain things needed to happen first.
Ešte sa museli udiať určité veci.
And when Sister White refers to these verses of Paul,
A keď sestra Whiteová hovorí o týchto veršoch,
she says that the message that would announce the soon coming of Christ was only to be preached after 1798 and not before.
a ona hovorí to posolstvo, ktoré malo vlastne hlásať blízky Kristov príchod, malo byť až po 1798.
And if we bring this conclusion to our line,
Toto prinesieme k záveru na našej línii.
and we have here on our line Sister White telling us that we should not time set
A máme tu sestru Whiteovú, ktorá hovorí, že nemáme určovať čas
in a period of darkness,
v čase temnoty.
then what we concluded is that the general thought is that as soon as you are in a reform line, time becomes required.
Náš záver z toho bol, že keď už sme v tej reformnej línii, tak čas zohráva rolu a je vyžadovaný.
Although Sister White says we should not.
Aj keď Pavol alebo sestra Whiteová hovoria, že by sme to nemali.
And that's how we brought these things together. The topic of a scattering.
Toto je téma rozptýlenia
And a gathering.
a zhromažďovania.
When you live in a gathering,
Keď žijeme v zhromažďovaní,
time is essential
čas je potrebný
and required to recognize.
a máme ho rozpoznať.
So that was the first part. I think that's a short summary of the first part of the study we did.
To bolo také zhrnutie prvej časti, ktorú sme urobili.
The second part was completely different.
Druhá časť bola úplne iná.
We looked to the statue of Daniel 2.
Pozreli sme sa na sochu Daniela 2.
That these four kingdoms
Tieto 4 kráľovstvá.
Is that a statue?
Toto? Socha?
This is
robot.
yeah. Babylon, Medo, Persia,
IT deformation.
Greece, and Rome.
Babylon, Medo, Perzia, Grécko, Rím.
And my question was, where does this vision end?
A ja som sa pýtal, kde vlastne končí toto videnie?
No. The feet.
To sú nohy.
So we had Rome. We had Daniel 2. Then we have Daniel 7 also.
Potom máme Daniela 7.
Where we see beast number 1, beast number 2, beast number 3 and beast number 4,
Tam vidíme 4 šelmy,
which are these same kingdoms.
to sú tie
And
kráľovstva.
out of beast number 4 there grows a small horn,
Zo 4. šelmy vyjde malý roh,
which speaks these marvelous things which we say is the papacy.
ktorý hovorí veľké veci.
So you can see the same elements: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, papal Rome, and this is pagan Rome, and here the divided situation of Europe where papal Rome was ruling.
Tuto vidíme potom rozdelenú Európu.
And then the next thing we see happening
Ďalšia vec, ktorá sa deje,
is this stone being cut out and smashes on the feet,
keď je vyťatý vlastne ten kameň a rozbije sochu,
which is an illustration of judgment.
udrie do nohy a to je vlastne ilustrácia súdu.
When we read through Daniel 7
Keď sme čítali Daniela 7,
until verse 8,
po 8. Until verse 8.
until verse 8 in Daniel 7,
Po 8. verš Daniela 7
we read the description of these kingdoms.
sme čítali popis týchto kráľovstiev.
If you then continue to read in verse 9
Čítame ďalej
until verse 14, I think,
až do 14. verša.
it talks about the judgment.
Hovorí to o súde.
I understand and I agree that Seventh-day Adventists in general, they apply this to 1844 and what's the word? Investigative judgment that started to take place.
Rozumiem tomu, aj s tým súhlasím. Vlastne my ako adventisti vo všeobecnosti vykladáme to ako vyšetrujúci súd. V 1844 začal.
But I would like to consider us these two chapters and Daniel 8 as well, by the way, we didn't talk about, but Daniel 8 is the same thing.
Chcel by som, aby sme zvážili tieto dve kapitoly, takisto aj 8. O tej sme nehovorili.
And what did I say? What I would like to emphasize
To, čo by som chcel zdôrazniť,
is the text from Sister White when she says Christ could have come back in her time period.
keď sestra Whiteová hovorila, že Pán Ježiš sa už mohol vrátiť v jej čase,
Like here, after 1844,
po 1844,
63, 88, especially in this time period here,
hlavne tuto v týchto dejinách,
she says Christ could have come back already
ona hovorí, že Kristus sa už mohol vrátiť,
if the people remained faithful in this time period.
ak by ľud dostal verný.
And I don't think necessarily that Jesus needed to come back in this time period. I think he could, if they remained faithful, he could have come back here in this time period.
Ja nemyslím, že to muselo byť len okolo 88. ale ak by boli verní, mohol prísť už skôr.
Or maybe 1863 was maybe the
Možno aj 63.
date that it needed to happen. But that's just a suggestion. But based upon her quote, it needed to take place somewhere here.
Na základe toho jej citátu vieme, že sa to malo udiať niekde tam.
And it didn't happen, and now we live about 180 years later.
Nestalo sa to a teraz žijeme
80
80
years. We live now 180 years later.
Aha,
Okay.
žijeme už 180 rokov ďalej od tých vecí, čo sa diali.
But we still have this statue,
Stále máme tú sochu.
and Sister Wright already says, yeah, we live somewhere in the feet,
Sestra Whiteová hovorí, áno, my žijeme niekde v čase tých prstov.
and we still live in the feet.
Stále sme tam ešte.
But we know from Revelation 17, for example, that there's kingdoms coming after papal Rome.
My vieme zo zjavenia 17, že po pápežskom Ríme ešte majú prísť nejaké kráľovstva.
which is another chapter that is interesting in this. By the way.
Sorry, say it again.
No, that was just a comment to you. Never mind. The thought that I wanted to introduce in the last study,
To, čo som chcel minule ukázať,
that it looks like that all these prophecies,
že to vyzerá ako všetky tieto proroctva,
they end in Millerite history.
ako keby siahali alebo končili v období Milleritov.
You have pagan Rome, papal Rome, judgment. Pagan Rome, papal Rome, judgment.
Pohanský Rím, pápežský Rím, súd. Pohanský Rím, pápežský Rím, súd.
And that's the end of the vision.
A to je koniec videnia.
And another chapter I would like to go into now,
A kapitola, do ktorej chcem ísť teraz,
where you can see that also clearly, I think,
si myslím, tam je to tiež jasne viditeľné,
is Matthew 24.
je Matúš 24.
This is the prophecy that Jesus speaks.
To je proroctvo, ktoré hovorí Pán Ježiš.
And this is the chapter where he starts to talk about the destruction of Jerusalem.
A tam hovorí o zničení Jeruzalema.
And maybe it's good to go to Matthew 24.
Poďme do Matúša 24.
And I would like just to do a Bible study here, really, like go through the verses and just to see. I would like to know what you see when we go through these verses.
Pôjdeme skrze tie verše a chcem, aby ste mi povedali, čo v tých veršoch vidíte.
So they are in the temple,
Sú v chráme
and the disciples, they point to these great buildings, and they marvel. They think they're super nice.
Učeníci mu ukazujú, aký je krásny ten chrám.
And then Jesus tells them that there will be no stone left upon the other.
A on im povie, že nebude tam žiaden kameň na kameni ponechaný.
And then they start to wonder, like, hey, what is he talking about?
A oni rozmýšľajú, čo toto znamená.
And they ask him a couple of questions.
A pýtajú sa ho nejaké otázky.
And in verse 3, they start in private, they come to him and they ask him.
A potom v súkromí sa ho pýtajú. Tretí verš.
In verse 3 he says, "Tell us when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?"
Povedz nám, kedy to bude, čo bude znamením tvojho príchodu a skonania sveta.
And so there are three questions.
To sú tri otázky.
And Sister White comments on what Jesus is doing in the rest of the chapter.
Sestra Vajta potom komentuje o tom, že čo Ježiš vlastne tu robí v tej kapitole.
And she says that he was not able to answer all their questions as they wanted it.
A ona hovorí, že on nemohol im odpovedať na tú otázku tak, jak to oni čakali.
Or maybe I should say that different. They did not really understand what they were asking.
Alebo skôr by som povedal, nerozumeli presne, čo sa pýtajú.
Because in their mind, the destruction of Jerusalem was the same thing as the destruction of the world and the coming of Christ.
Lebo pre nich zničenie Jeruzalema, zničenie sveta a príchod Krista boli všetko jedna a tá istá vec.
So they asked him just one question.
Oni mysleli, že sa opýtajú jednu otázku.
But Jesus, viewing over the future history, so to speak,
Ale Pán Ježiš, vidiac budúcnosť,
knew that it was not one event.
on vedel, že to nie je jedna udalosť.
And because he was merciful, he didn't want to give them, how do you say?
Rebuke them?
No, not rebuke them, but to, Sister White even explains it.
Or overload them?
Yeah, overload them with information, and also not to tell them too much about the bad times that are still to come.
On im kvôli svojej milosti nechcel ich zahltiť vlastne toľkými informáciami a aj zlými vecami alebo zlým časom, ktoré boli pred nimi.
If you go to Desire of Ages,
Keď ideme do Tužby vekov,
and chapter 69,
je to kapitola 69,
third paragraph.
tretí odstavec.
And then the third paragraph starts with Christ's words had been spoken.
To a big multitude.
Yeah.
How much they read?
Yeah, do the whole paragraph, yeah.
Takže 69. kapitola, 3. odstavec. Kristus to povedal pred veľkým zástupom ľudu, ale keď boli na Olivovom vrchu sami, Peter, Ján, Jakub a Ondrej sa ho spýtali: Povedz nám, kedy sa to stane a čo bude znamením tvojho príchodu a konca sveta. V odpovedi učeníkom Ježiš neoddialoval udalosť zničenie Jeruzalema a slávny deň svojho príchodu. Neoddeloval. O obidvoch týchto udalostiach hovoril súčasne. Keby bol učeníkom rozprával o budúcich udalostiach, ako ich videl, neboli by tento pohľad zniesli. Ohľaduplne im teda popísal dvojakú kritickú situáciu a premýšľaním si mali učeníci sami ujasňovať význam týchto slov. Keď hovoril o zničení Jeruzalema, jeho prorocké slová presahovali túto udalosť. Týkali sa konečného vyvrcholenia boja v onen deň, keď sám Pán povstane zo svojho miesta, aby potrestal svet za jeho neprávosti, keď zem odhalí preliatú krv a nebude už prikrývať svojich mŕtvych. Celý prejav bol určený nielen učeníkom, ale všetkým ľuďom žijúcim v posledných cenách pozemských dejín.
Exactly. So.
But she says here that it's given to those who live at the end of the world.
Yeah, not only for the disciples, but also for us, for those who would live in the last scenes of this history.
But the signs fulfilled at the Milleritů history.
Well, yeah, that's where we get to. What signs?
Like
you have to
sounds on the moon.
Yeah, that's exactly. So.
Okay, so you just go ahead.
Okay. So did you understand this paragraph?
Porozumeli ste tomuto odstavcu?
So you have in the so you have Matthew 24.
Matúš 24.
Jesus and his disciples
Ježiš a jeho učeníci
are here.
sú tu.
And Jesus tells them, here in the future, something going to happen.
A Pán Ježiš im hovorí,
we didn't even read it. Maybe we should read it
že
first.
v budúcnosti sa čosi stane.
So here in verse 3, he receives these 3 questions.
Takže dostane tie otázky v 3. verši.
And then in verse 4 and onward, he starts to warn them for certain things to come, especially for false prophets and people that come in his name to deceive you.
A potom varuje vlastne pred falošnými prorokmi, ktorí chodia v jeho mene.
And wars shall come, and rumors of wars.
A vojnami a hovorením o vojnách.
Verse 7.
6. verš.
And nations shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom.
Lebo povstane národ proti národu a kráľovstvo proti kráľovstvu a bude bývať hlad a mor a zemetrasenia budú miestami.
Verse 11, many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many.
11. verš. A povstanú aj mnohí falošní proroci a zvedú mnohých.
And verse 15.
Poďme na 15. verš.
So what we just read were characteristics or signs or things he warned for to warn his disciples.
Takže my sme čítali určité vlastnosti alebo znamenia, na čo si oni majú dávať pozor, prečo ich varuje.
And then in verse 15,
15. verši
he tells something different.
Hovorí niečo iné.
Another sign or another thing they needed to look out for.
Ďalšie znamenie, na ktoré si majú dávať pozor.
It says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place.
Keď teda uvidíte ohavnosť spustošenia, o ktorej hovoril prorok Daniel, že stojí na svetom mieste,
then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Vtedy tí, ktorí budú v Judsku, nech utekajú na vrchy.
So where is this referring to? What is this
O čom
referring
toto
to?
hovorí?
O zničení Jeruzalema v 70. letech.
The destruction of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, if we zoom in on the destruction of Jerusalem, how does that history look? Do we know something about that history?
Keď sa pozrieme zblízka na tie dejiny, čo vieme o nich? Ako to vyzeralo, prebiehalo?
Takže přišel ten Cestius, že římská armáda obklíčila a to bylo pro ně znamení.
So first Cestius came, which was a sign for them when the Cestius besieged the city.
Yeah. And then later,
And he left.
Yeah. So where is this referring to when it says, when you see the abomination of desolation,
Takže tuto keď hovorí, že keď uvidíte ohavnosť pustošenia,
then let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains.
tí, čo sú v Judei, nech utečú na vrchy. Na čo to odkazuje?
That's referring to that specific thing she mentioned.
K tejto udalosti, o ktorej ty hovoríš.
Right, that Cestius comes,
Že príde Cestius,
and when you see Cestius,
keď uvidíte Cestia,
flee.
utečte.
So it's not really referring to 70 AD.
It's not.
It's not referring,
Ono to vlastne nehovorí presne o tom roku 70.
but 3.5 years before, 66 AD.
2 years, no.
Or I think it was actually exact 3.5 years.
Ale hovorí to o 3,5 roka dozadu.
I'm not sure if the beginning, one of the events was Passover and the other one was, I think it was the Atonement Day.
Jedna z udalostí bola Veľká noc a druhá udalosť, myslím, že bol Deň zmierenia.
One of them, I don't know if the 66 was Passover or the 70. I forgot about that. But
Neviem, ktoré bolo, jedno bolo v 66. a jedno v 70.
so you have 66 AD
Máme 66.
in verse 15
v 15. verši
and 16 and onward.
a ďalej.
So you have verse 15 here where Jesus warns them for this thing to happen.
A tu ich Ježiš varuje o tom, že sa to stane.
When you this see, flee into the mountains.
Keď toto uvidíte, utečte na vrchy.
But here, verse 4 to verse 14
A 4. až 14. verš
tells them about other things, false prophets,
im hovorí o iných veciach, o falošných prorokoch,
wars, rumors of wars,
o vojnách, o tom, že budete počuť o vojnách
etc.
a ďalej.
So, and then if you continue reading from verse 15 onward to verse 20,
Keď budeme čítať ďalej až po 20. verš,
it's all a description of this history.
tak nám to vlastne popisuje tieto dejiny.
So this is 15 to 20.
Uh-huh.
Because it says that verse 20, the last verse, it says, "But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day."
V 20. verši sa píše, ale modlite sa, aby sa váš útek neprihodil v zime ani v sobotu.
So, and then it starts to make makes a comment.
Potom je tam taká poznámka.
It says, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor even shall be, nor ever shall be."
21. verš. Lebo vtedy bude veľké súženie, akého nebolo od počiatku sveta až doteraz, ani už nikdy viac nebude.
And verse 22 says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved."
22. verš. A keby neboli skrátené tie dni, nebolo by zachránené niektoré telo, ani pre vyvolených, ale pre vyvolených budú skrátené tie dni.
So, what is this great tribulation? What is happening after verse 20?
Čo je toto veľké súženie? This is 12:60.
Tady mám odkaz Daniel 12.1.
This is Daniel 12:1.
Pod tím kravickým je odkaz Daniel 12.1. Velké složení.
But
To je až potom.
we're in 66 AD. You need to flee into the mountains.
Mm.
And then it says, "And a great tribulation will come."
Sme v roku 66, máme utiecť na vrchy a potom má prísť veľké súženie. Destruction of Jerusalem. It's hard to say because it's mingled.
That's where first intent I would say it's the destruction of Jerusalem, right?
Keď sa na to pozriem len vlastne ako keby v tom pôvodnom kontexte, tak vidím v tom zničenie Jeruzalema.
Let's go back to this quote we just read.
Poďme ešte naspäť k tomu citátu, čo sme čítali.
Because it is good to, if we really go into the text a little bit deeper, then we can chapter 69. And then she says, like a third sentence, I think, Jesus did not answer.
You have to read the whole sentence because it's...
Jesus did not answer his disciples by taking up separately the destruction of Jerusalem and the great day of his coming.
V odpovedi učeníkom Ježiš neoddeloval zničenie Jeruzalema a slávny deň svojho príchodu.
So you have two events in this sentence.
Takže máme tu vlastne v tejto vete dve udalosti.
The destruction of Jerusalem.
Zničenie Jeruzalema.
So destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the world.
A koniec sveta.
And he did not take them up. So if Jesus is here with his disciples,
Pán Ježiš je tu.
Disciples are here. This is destruction of Jerusalem. This is the end of the world.
Takže tam sú učeníci, zničenie Jeruzalema a koniec sveta. Alebo zničenie sveta.
And then there is also destruction of Jerusalem and the great day of his coming. Or maybe I should
Alebo takto.
make it
Slávny deň jeho príchodu.
the second coming.
Druhý príchod.
Second coming. If you go in the sentence before,
Pôjdeme jednu vetu dozadu.
you have these three questions from the disciples.
Sú tu tri otázky učeníkov.
So when will be the destruction of Jerusalem? When shall these things be? They ask.
Kedy sa to stane? Kedy bude zničený Jeruzalem?
And then they ask, what shall be the sign of thy coming?
Čo bude znamením tvojho príchodu?
And the end of the world.
A konca sveta.
So you have also a sign of thy coming. A sign of thy coming.
Znamenie jeho príchodu.
And the end of the world.
Koniec sveta.
He's coming. But then this other sentence, there's only two mentioned. It says, Jesus did not answer his disciples by taking up separately the destruction of Jerusalem and the great day of his coming.
A v tej druhej vete sa spomínajú len dve udalosti.
He mingled the description of these two events.
Obidvoch odpovedí učeníkom Ježiš neoddeloval zničenie Jeruzalema a slávny deň svojho príchodu. O obidvoch týchto udalostiach hovoril súčasne. Alebo v angličtine je, že ich spojil.
So, and then two sentences further.
Ďalej.
It says, in mercy to them he blended the description of the two great crises, leaving the disciples to study out the meaning for themselves.
My to tu máme, we have it translated differently. I'll read it and then I will say.
Okay.
Ohľaduplne im teda popísal dvojakú kritickú situáciu a premýšľaním si mali učeníci sami ujasňovať význam jeho slov. A tam bolo vlastne, že v jeho milosti im popísal dve veľké krízy.
Okay. Then it says, when he referred to the destruction of Jerusalem, his prophetic words reached beyond that event to the final conflagration in that day when the Lord shall rise out of his place to punish the world.
Ešte tam bol, že v milosti vlastne spojil dve veľké krízy. Keď hovoril o zničení Jeruzalema, jeho prorocké slova presahovali túto udalosť, týkali sa konečného vyvrcholenia boja v onen deň, keď sám Pán povstane zo svojho miesta, aby potrestal svet za jeho neprávosti.
So, we read it, but what did he do? If we want to illustrate this, what we just read, how do we illustrate this on the board?
Ak chceme ilustrovať na tabulu to, čo sme práve teraz čítali, we would have to put it all in one event, because it says he blended.
Yeah, so what did he blend?
Ktoré udalosti vlastne spojil, čo sme čítali?
Zničení Jeruzaléma a druhý příchod.
Destruction of Jerusalem and second coming.
Yeah. Okay, so this is so for the disciples it sounded like he was talking about the destruction of Jerusalem.
Pre učeníkov to znelo, že on hovorí o zničení Jeruzalema. You can use
So let's say so for the disciples this was 70 AD.
Pre učeníkov to bol vlastne 70. rok.
But in his description he reached further into the future.
Ale v jeho popise on siaha ďalej do budúcnosti.
So basically there was a break here.
Takže ako keby tu bol taký prelom.
And where did he refer to?
A na čo on vlastne odkazoval?
Because this was the trampling down of... No, I should... Wait, let's go back to verse... For then shall be great tribulation, so it's verse 21 and 22. We talk about verse 21 and 22.
Hovoríme teraz o veršoch 21 a 22, že bude veľké súženie, akého nebolo.
So, I should do it this way. So this is 70.
Toto je 70.
That's what the disciple thought he was talking about.
To je to, čo si učeníci mysleli, že o tom hovorí.
This is going to be a great tribulation.
To bude to veľké súženie.
Which was true.
To aj bolo.
But without the disciples knowing,
bez toho, že by to vedeli učeníci,
he pointed further into the future. This tribulation
on ukazoval na ďalekejšiu budúcnosť.
wasn't only referring to this destruction, but it continued till the end. It continued all the way to some point.
To súženie nebolo len to zničenie, ale pokračovalo to ďalej.
If we read verse 20 and 21, you just gave me an answer.
Vy ste mi pred chvíľou dali odpoveď na 21. druhý verš.
Which was way more in the future.
Že to bolo vlastne ďalej do budúcnosti.
Brother Peter said the 1260.
Ty si vravel, že 1260.
This is where Sister White refers to when she quotes these two verses.
O tom hovorí sestra Whiteová, keď cituje tieto verše.
Except for those days shall be shortened, there should no flesh be saved.
Ak by tieto dni neboli skrátené, nikto by nebol zachránený.
She refers to the 1260.
Ona hovorí o 1260.
When does this 1260 end?
A kedy to končí?
1798. So if we look to, if we go to Luke 21, that's the same chapter but in Luke.
Keď sa pozrieme do Lukáša 21.
And then verse 20 verš. A keď uvidíte Jeruzalém, že je obklúčený vojskami, vtedy vedzte, že sa priblížilo jeho spustošenie. Verse 21.
21. A vtedy tí, ktorí budú v Judsku, nech utekajú na vrchy, a ktorí v jeho strede, nech výjdu, a ktorí na poliach, nech vchádzajú do neho.
Oh yeah, continue to verse 24.
And also 23 or just...
Yeah, just continue where you
A
started.
idem až po 24. Lebo to budú dni pomsty, aby sa naplnilo všetko, čo je napísané. Ale beda tehotným a tým, ktoré budú kojiť v tých dňoch, lebo bude veľká tieseň v tej zemi a hnev bude na tomto ľude. A budú padať ostrý meča a zajatí zavedení budú medzi všetky národy a Jeruzalém bude šliapaný od pohanov, dokiaľ sa nenaplnia časy pohanov.
So here you can see that Jerusalem will be trodden down under foot. So you have verse 20 to 23.
Jeruzalém bude šlápaný od pohanov, 22-23.
And 20 to 23 it shows that people had to do in 66 to flee into the mountains.
A tam v tom 22. 3. verši vidíme, že čo vlastne ľudia mali urobiť, mali utiecť na vrchy.
And then in verse 24 it starts to show what will happen with Jerusalem.
A v 24. nám to ukazuje, čo sa stane s Jeruzalémom.
And it shall be Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
A tam sme čítali, že Jeruzalém bude šľapaný od pohanov, dokiaľ sa nenaplnia časy pohanov.
So the disciples just were looking to the literal Jerusalem and that it will be destroyed.
Učeníci vlastne zhľadali k tomu doslovnému Jeruzalému, že bude zničený.
If you go to Revelation 11,
Keď ideme do Zjavenia 11,
verse 1 and 2.
prvý, druhý verš. A bola mi daná trstina, podobná prútu, a anjel stál a povedal: Vstaň a zmeraj chrám Boží, aj oltár, aj tých, ktorí sa modlia v ňom. A dvor, ktorý je zvonku chrámu, vyhoď von a nemeraj ho, lebo je daný pohanom, i to sväté mesto budú šliapať 42 mesiacov.
So here you can see that a similar language about the holy city, about Jerusalem.
Tu vidíme ten podobný jazyk o tom svetom meste.
It will be trodden underfoot
Bude šliapaný od pohanov,
by the Gentiles, just like Luke.
tak jak aj v Lukášovi.
But here a time period is mentioned
Ale tu je spomenutý aj časový
for
úsek,
42 months.
42 mesiacov.
And then in the next verse it even mentions the 1260.
A potom ďalej to hovorí o 1260.
So where the disciples just thought about 70 AD,
Učeníci rozmýšľali len o tom roku 70.
Jesus in reality sees this trotting down underfoot all the way till the end.
Ale Ježiš vidí toto šliapanie po Jeruzaleme až do konca.
I mean there's this 1260 period in here where
To obdobie 1260,
the trotting down is taking place by the papacy.
ktoré sa deje vlastne pápežstvom.
But you could say that the trotting down even started earlier.
Ale môžeme povedať, že to začalo ešte skôr.
We would say by paganism.
Pohanstvom.
In 70 AD it started with literally with Jerusalem.
A v 70. roku doslovne Jeruzalém bol pošľapaný.
And this trotting down continued all the way till the end of the 42 months.
A vlastne to pokračovalo až do konca 42 mesiacov.
And we mentioned already that is 1798.
A tu sme už spomenuli, že je to 1798.
So Jesus mingled these two events, this one and this one,
Ježiš pomiešal tieto dve udalosti, túto a túto.
the 70 AD and the 1798,
70. rok a 1798.
and he brought them together in one point.
A spojili ich do jedného bodu.
But in reality, for the disciples,
A pre učeníkov
but for us, we know
a pre nás,
that he was actually giving a description
my vieme, že popisoval
of this history here.
tieto dejiny tu.
Because his words were not only for the disciples, they were also for those that live at the end of the world. We just
Jeho
read.
slova neboli iba pre učeníkov, ale aj pre tých, čo žijú na konci sveta.
So, if we now return to Revelation or Matthew 24,
Sa vrátime k Matúšovi 24.
and we were in verse 20, 21. Then if you read verse 23 to 28, there is some warnings again
24 až 28 sú varovania
about false prophets and false
o
Christs.
falošných prorokoch a falošných kristoch.
And then in verse 29 he continues his thought.
V 29. verši znova pokračuje tú myšlienku.
And he refers to this tribulation again. So in verse 21 we have the great tribulation here.
A zase hovorí o tom veľkom súžení.
And then he says, after those days, after this great tribulation,
A on hovorí, po týchto dňoch, po tom veľkom súžení,
verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days,
29. verš. Hneď po súžení tých dní
shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken.
zatmie sa slnce a mesiac a nedá svoje žiare a hviezdy budú padať z neba a nebeské moci sa budú pohybovať.
So you see, after the tribulation, there is signs in the sun,
Takže po tom súžení sú znamenia na slnku,
in the moon,
na mesiaci
and in the stars.
a na hviezdach.
And I think we know from our Adventist history and studies
Myslím, že my vieme z adventných dejín,
that these had a fulfillment in this time period of 1798.
že toto malo svoje naplnenie v 1798.
Are you familiar with that?
Poznáte to?
The sun was darkened, the
Zatmilo sa slnko,
moon turned into blood, became red.
Mesiac bol červený,
And the stars fell from heaven in 1833.
padali hviezdy 1833.
So that was verse 29.
To bol 29. verš.
Verse 29. And then the next thing, verse 30,
30. verš.
it says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
A vtedy sa ukáže znamenie syna človeka na nebi a vtedy budú plakať všetky pokolenia zeme.
And then shall all tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
A uvidia syna človeka prichádzajúceho na nebeských oblákoch s mocou a slávou veľkou.
And he shall send his angels with great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from all the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
A pošle svojich anielov s trúbou veľkého zvuku a zhromaždia jeho vyvolených od 4 vetrov, od jedných končín nebies až po druhé končiny.
And that's the end of his prophecy.
A to je koniec toho proroctva.
So that is language of a second coming, of a return.
Toto je vlastne taký jazyk druhého príchodu.
So what I see here in Matthew 24
Čo vidím v Matúšovi 24,
is the same thing I see in Daniel 2, 7 and 8.
je to isté, čo vidím v Danielovi 2, 7 a 8.
You see a prophecy that leads till 1798,
Je to proroctvo, ktoré vedie do 1798
a little bit further into after 1798,
a trošku ďalej za to ešte.
and then there is a judgment and the return of Christ.
A potom je súd a návrat Krista.
Can we see that?
Vidíte to?
Because I think that starts to become important,
Myslím, že to začína byť dôležité.
and this is just something that is still in development.
Toto je ešte teraz trošku v takom rozvoji.
And I think there's more in it than we at the moment see.
Je v tom ešte viacej, ako teraz zatiaľ vidíme.
Maybe we need to adjust a little bit in my wording or in my explanation details.
Sú určité detaily, ktoré musíme ešte dotiahnuť a vedieť to lepšie vysvetliť.
But I think the big picture of what I propose here, I think it is true.
Ale myslím, taký celkový obraz, ktorý som sem predstavil, že je pravdivý.
That these prophecies point to Millerite history and the judgment that takes place there.
Tieto proroctvá vlastne ukazujú na dejiny Milleritov a na súd, ktorý sa tam mal odohrať.
And that's where they end.
A tam to končí.
So if that is so,
Ak je to tak,
maybe we could say
možno by sme mohli povedať,
that all the prophets,
že všetci proroci,
their vision, their the vision that God gave to them
videnia, ktoré im Boh dal,
did not lead further to this history.
nesiahali za dejiny Milleritov.
That's my proposal. And if that is so,
A ak je to tak,
then I think that Sister White was one of those prophets also.
myslím, že aj sestra Whiteová bola jedným z týchto prorokov.
She was not able to look further than her own time period.
A ona nebola schopná vidieť ďalej, ako bol jej vlastný čas.
She was a Millerite.
Bola Milleritka.
She was a prophet raised up in this time period.
Bola prorokyňou, ktorá bola pozdvihnutá v tomto čase.
But I think that if all these prophets received a vision from God that did not lead further into Millerite history and a little bit further,
Ale myslím, že všetci títo proroci, ktorí dostali videnie od Boha a neboli schopní vlastne vidieť za dejiny Milleritov,
then I think Sister White is one of them as well.
myslím, že sestra Whiteová je tiež jedným z týchto prorokov.
Of course she describes things that we still put in the future.
Áno, ona popisuje veci, ktoré my ešte stále dávame do budúcnosti.
She talks about the Sunday law, she talks about the rising up of the beast at the end of the world.
Hovorí o nedeľnom zákone, o znova povstanie tej šelmy,
7 plagues.
v 7 ranách.
But theoretically, in her vision, in her mind, they could have taken place already here in this history.
Ale teoreticky a v jej videní a v jej myslení sa mohli udiať v tých dejinách.
And yeah, I think that's just something we have to settle on maybe or start thinking about or consider.
A toto je niečo, o čom musíme začať rozmýšľať.
And that would also make it maybe we start to understand her better also in things she says.
A porozumieme aj lepšie tomu, čo píše a hovorí.
For example, and that's why I did this study, for example, the quotes on time setting.
A to súvisí aj s tými citátmi o určovaní času.
Sister White, as I see it at the moment, Sister White could not reach further into the future. Of course she saw, Sister White Sister White lived in the last days where the prophetic vision stopped, so to speak.
Ona žila naozaj v posledných dňoch, kedy sa skončilo prorocké videnie.
And of course she had visions about the future.
Áno, ona mala videnia o budúcnosti.
In her mind, I think it would take place in her time or in her generation.
Ktoré sa podľa jej porozumenia mali naplniť v jej generácii.
She didn't see a Laodicean church that falls completely into wickedness.
Ona nevidela cirkev, ktorá padla do totálneho úpadku.
That God needed to raise up a 8th church, so to speak, or a movement.
Že by Boh musel ako keby pozvinúť 8. cirkev alebo hnutie.
I don't think she saw that.
Myslím, že to nevidela.
And therefore, quotes like her anti-time setting quotes, so to speak,
A jej citáty proti určovaniu času
need to be placed in the context of a prophet
musia byť dané do kontextu proroka,
that believes in the speedy return of Christ.
ktorý verí vo veľmi blízky návrat Krista.
And that time setting is no longer after this period of
A
1844.
určovanie času po 1844 už nie je v hre.
You had a question about Revelation 10.
Bola tu otázka ohľadne zjavenia 10.
The only comment I can make on that is in relation to what we study now.
Ten koment, ktorý viem na to dať, je v súvislosti s tým, čo čítame teraz. Teraz študujeme.
That also John saw not further than 1844
Že ani Ján nemohol vidieť ďalej ako 1844.
or the angels that instructed him.
Alebo anieli, ktorí ho vyučovali.
Gave him instructions until this time period, like all the other prophets.
Mu dali vlastne naučenie len po tento čas, tak jak aj ostatným prorokom.
All the prophecies in the Bible,
Všetky proroctvá v Biblii
all the prophets
a proroci
pointed to this history.
Ukazovali na tieto dejiny.
And all the time prophecies, or many of the time prophecies, pointed to that history, 1798 and 1844.
Všetky časové proroctvá ukazovali na tie dejiny.
And there is no time prophecy ending after 1844.
Už nie je žiadne proroctvo, ktoré by končilo po 1844.
Because all the prophets pointed to that history.
Pretože všetci proroci ukazovali na tie dejiny.
But now we, 180 years later,
A teraz o 180 rokov neskôr
have to deal with these texts.
musíme sa vlastne vysporiadať s týmito textami.
And we start to realize that God is that the Bible becomes a, how to say,
Parable.
yeah, a parable. Yeah, the Bible becomes a parable that we need to make applications of old texts.
A my vlastne z tých starých spisov musíme urobiť aplikáciu pre dnešnú dobu.
And maybe in our studies after lunch, we can look into some examples of the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Môžeme sa pozrieť na niektoré príklady z Nového a Starého zákona v ďalšej štúdii.
That what we are doing is actually not really a new thing.
Že to, čo teraz robíme, nie je niečo úplne nové.
To make applications, to make applications.
Spraviť určitú aplikáciu.
And what do I mean when I say application?
Čo tým myslím?
What is your understanding? What do I mean with application?
Ako tomu rozumiete, keď poviem aplikácia?
Převedení do naší doby.
That we put it into our time.
No, linie na linii bychom to měli dělat.
Because we should do it line upon line.
Yeah. So you have a text. It is not really meant to be for our line. Is this text, when you read it, is it specifically meant for us? When you do an application?
Keď robíte aplikáciu, tento text, ktorý čítame, je pôvodne myslený pre nás? Keď robíme aplikáciu.
Původně není.
Originally no.
Okay, yeah. That's what I understand as well. So you have a text that has an original purpose.
Takže máme určitý text, ktorý má svoj pôvodný zámer.
But we make an application for our time.
A robíme z neho aplikáciu pre náš čas.
Okay, so that's what we're already doing for 30 years now, line upon line.
To už robíme vlastne 30 rokov línia na líniu.
But I think that this explains why we actually do line upon line.
Ale myslím si, že toto vysvetľuje, prečo to vlastne tak robíme.
Because there is no history in the Bible that talks about our history.
Lebo žiadna z tých dejín nehovorí priamo o našich dejinách.
We need to do line upon line.
My to musíme spraviť línia na líniu.
Because all prophecy is finished.
Pretože všetko proroctvo už skončilo.
No, možná.
I'm learning as I'm teaching now. As I speak, I start to realize something. So I kind of say things now out loud. I think I never thought about that too. but if this is true,
Ak toto je pravdivé,
and I think many of it is,
a myslím, že mnohé z toho je,
can be adjusted.
možno to treba trošku upraviť.
But the fact that we do line upon line,
Ale to, že robíme línia na líniu,
is making applications of text that originally had a different meaning.
Je to, že robíme línia na líniu, je, že my vlastne robíme aplikáciu z textov, ktoré pôvodne mali iný význam.
And if this is true, then line upon line is the only way to study our Bible.
Ak toto je pravda, tak línia na líniu je jediný spôsob, ako môžeme študovať Bibliu.
Maybe let's leave it here.
Tu by som to uzavrel.
Or we can pray. Or how long are we?
That's good.
Let's pray.
Poďme sa pomodliť.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Drahý nebeský Otče,
thank you, Lord, for this study.
ďakujeme Ti za toto štúdium.
I think it rained inside,
Myslím, že nám tu zapršalo
and
vnútri.
we thank you for that.
Za to Ti ďakujeme.
We pray that we can settle into these thoughts that are new,
Prosíme ťa, aby sme sa mohli v týchto myšlienkách, aby si nás uistil alebo udomacnil,
that we we'll not be afraid if it's too difficult,
aby sme sa to nezlakli, ak to vyzerá ťažké,
or we get scary because we feel we are not on a firm ground anymore.
alebo nás to vystrašilo, máme pocit, že nestojíme pevnými nohami na zemi.
Maybe this answers some questions, but it creates more questions.
Možno to dá odpoveď na nejaké otázky, ale spôsobí to ďalšie otázky.
Lord, help us to be strong and faithful,
Prosím, pomôž nám byť silnými a vernými.
to be able to word our questions so we can talk about them.
Aby sme tie otázky vedeli povedať a porozprávať sa o nich.
And we will be able to together find truth and light.
Aby sme mohli spoločne nájsť svetlo a pravdu.
Be with us now as we prepare for lunch,
Prosím, buď s nami, keď sa pripravujeme na obed.
and bless us as we hope to continue our studies later today.
A požehnaj nám, keď budeme pokračovať v našom štúdiu.
In Jesus' name we ask.
Mene Ježiša.
Amen.
Amen.